I'm Shree Medlock. I'm the National Advocacy Director for the Black Alliance for Educational Options. And I was telling Ellen that I'm not used to, I don't like giving speeches. I'm used to standing up in front of a podium and shouting and screaming. So I'll try not to do that to you guys because you look very professional and tight. I didn't get a smile out of everybody, so I got to start again. Now, let me tell you a little bit about why I'm here. And then I'll tell you a little bit about BAYO, and certainly visit our website because I can't get it all in. I'm here because of a little boy who's now 24 years old. His name is Brandon. Brandon is my oldest son. And in 6th grade, I found out Brandon could not read. Attending the best public school. I mean, we got in because of the color of our skin. In Texas, they had some of the schools, because they were really high quality in a very good area, they had African Americans or minorities to come in. So we got in because, we were black and we lived in the area. It was we had it all going on. Very good school. Brandon started that school, and I learned right at the beginning of 6th grade year that he couldn't read. Now, he could read. He'd sit there and read every book, but he couldn't comprehend what he was reading. Every report card, he made the honor roll. Now, his mom, I was a director at Allstate Insurance Company. I don't know. Don't start shooting any darts at me if you have any problems with your insurance. But it was the best company I ever worked for, other than the one I'm with today. His dad was the coach at the school. Every parent-teacher conference, we were there. If I needed to bake cookies, I bought them and sent them, We were active, involved parents. And my son, I found out in 6th grade, could not read, which meant he couldn't do math, which meant he couldn't do history, which meant there were days that he would sit in classrooms and not understand what was going on and feel stupid. That's literally what he said to our doctor, because I had him all checked out. So the teacher said to me, we can get him some help. I'm going to send some papers home, and you and Billy just sign them and send them back. And I said, no problem, because I had been raised and taught that teachers were the expert. I was just a mama. I was just a parent, right? And I told her that. We were on the first name basis. And so I said, you send the paperwork home, and I'll sign it, and we'll get Brandon the help he needs. Well, when they sent the papers home, I thought I was buying another house. I don't know if you've ever seen IEP paperwork, but it was a lot. And fortunately for me and my husband and my son, my pastor at my church had just started, probably 6 months earlier, talking about this school choice, parent choice, education reform, all this stuff. He was just really all into it. So every Sunday morning, he'd take probably about 5 minutes to talk about making sure that you're involved, engaged in your children's education, that you are, that you're not signing your children life away into special education programs. And, we'd sit there because we were the Medlocks, and we didn't have that kind of problem. Remember, we were in a very good school, and so he wasn't really talking to us. He was talking to all those other parents that didn't attend parent-teacher conferences, didn't have relationships like we had, all of those things. So to make a long story short, I literally called him and said, I think they're placing Brandon in special education classes, because you don't call them special education classes anymore. They're alternative classes. And he said, well, we're not going to sign the papers, and let's look at it. And my pastor at the time was a founding BAYO board member, and he would, as I said, was trying to infuse this into his congregation, into the membership. And I'd sit there, and as they would make bus trips to Austin to try to change policies that worked in our communities around education reform, I'd sit there and say, I'm not an activist. In fact, I remember going up to him one Sunday and saying, Pastor, here's $20. I'm really not an activist. I really can't hold a sign. I don't really believe in that. Because I believe that if parents just show up at PTA meetings, and if they just work with the teachers and treat the teachers as the experts, then everything would be just fine. Well, it happened to me. Long story short, I didn't sign any papers. I did everything I could to make sure my son learned how to read and write and go to college. And he finished college, and now he's 24 years old, still in my pocket, but he is working and he is living the life of Riley. So I have to tell you that story. I also have a daughter. Jennifer is 19, and she just started college in Alabama. But Jennifer was a little bit different. She is just smart. I don't know about you guys, but I had the first parent-teacher conference I went with her. I had never had a teacher say to me, your daughter is so smart. She is being tracked. We're looking at her to see if she's, where she's going to fall when she's in 12th grade. She's going to be valedictorian. What person? I'd never had a conversation like that. Because with my son, it was always, he's such a good kid. Oh, he is so sweet. Oh, I tell you, he can really put on a show in the classroom. So when I had her, I practiced a different option with her. I paid for her to go to a private school because I wanted her, challenged, and I wanted the rigor. She could handle it. And we could afford it at the time. But again, I didn't really support that school choice thing, because I felt like if you really wanted, choice, you needed to pay for it like we were. And I believe that if you really cared about your children, you'd find a way. That was the Shree Medlock, go work and do your thing. But let me tell you, I got a little shell-shocked when I went through the situation with my son, because I then learned a lot of things about involvement versus engagement. First of all, signing the report card does not mean that you're engaged. And that I needed to push the envelope a little bit harder and further. And hence walks in Bayo, which is how I got so involved in this work back in 2001. Because I said, if this is happening to me, what's happening to the parents that didn't walk in the room like they owned it, or had problems, or dropped out of school, or didn't, finish school? How did they help their children get a quality education and know what resources to get? Because I was really convinced that if you know somebody that knows somebody, whether you have the money or not, you can get the necessary options. So that's a little bit just about me. I got involved with this because I am a mom, and I'm still a mom. For all of you who are waiting for your children to turn 18 and you think you're going to be off the hook, forget that. It doesn't work that way. I am a mother, and I am loving it, but let me tell you something. I get up every single day passionate about changing the learning environments for poor and working class families. That is what our mission at our organization, that's who we are. We are a national education reform advocacy organization. We fight for ed reform and parent choice policies that will allow our kids to have access to quality educational options. And, let me tell you something. That's a really fancy thing to say, but it's a little bit harder to do. The communities that we work in Mississippi, Alabama, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Louisiana, and we're going into Tennessee and Kentucky, they're not easy because we're going into black communities, low-income communities, and middle-class communities, trying to get our people engaged in the conversation, trying to get them, because we understand, first of all, that middle-class black people already have it. Because if you have resources, if you know somebody that knows somebody, you are not going to send your child to a school that's not working for them. We already know that. The people that don't have those options are poor people. Do you guys agree with me? Good. It's okay to clap. I need that. I need some support up here. It's hard. I can tell you that we have at our organization about 8 core values. I'm not going to get into all of them, but we live by about 4 every single day that I think are important. First of all, we have to believe and inform and educate our communities that black children are not only intelligent, but they're talented. And there's only going to be about a couple of LeBron James and, Jay-Z and all these big speakers and, football players and singers. Our children have to get a quality education if they're going to make it. Education, as he said earlier, is important in our community. The other thing is that we have to act with a sense of urgency. I have never, ever seen such complacency in my life around education. The only place, and I don't know if you've been to New Orleans lately, but since the storm, you just, as soon as your plane lands, there's a sense of, the synergy, the energy in that city is incredible. It's incredible because there was a storm in 2005, right, that totally wiped out the education system. Buildings totally wiped out. I mean, there were there was nothing. And they had to create an education system from the ground up. And you know where they started? They started with someone who knew about charter schools, because charter schools are the only entity at that time, other than private schools, that could actually, that knew how to run a school. They were their own administrators, they knew budgets and all of that. And so in New Orleans right now, there are over 80 charter schools in the city. There are very robust, there are probably over almost 3,000 children in a private scholarship program, or a public scholarship program, a voucher program. They told me to say scholarship. It's hard to say it. It's a voucher. We have a tax rebate that's going to start next year and a tax deduction program, along with a very robust homeschooling, private schools, and then traditional schools. And that's statewide. And I can tell you, because they said, please talk a little bit about Louisiana, why and how that happened. In 2005, I moved to Louisiana after the storm. I mean, everybody was moving to Texas. It was, you have to live there, okay. But I moved to Louisiana in 2006, actually, and did kind of some door-to-door informing education, because really what BAYO does is that we work in 3 different ways. We inform, educate, and convene. And then we also create the policies and work with organizations to create policies around quality ed reform policies. And so we did a lot of informing, a lot of education, a lot of educating, and a lot of convening. And one of the things that I'd like to say that we had a big part in was passing the first voucher program there. Very robust, but we couldn't have done it without with a favorable governor who not only saw fit that we needed to have a robust charter movement, but we needed to have other options because kids did not have the 5, 10, 15, 20 years to get it right. We needed something right now, and that's what's happening in Louisiana right now. There is a sense of urgency. So even in New Orleans, when you go there, it's the fastest. They're closing the achievement gap. Schools there in New Orleans used to be, I think, before Katrina, it was one of the top 10 worst school districts in the country. And today, I am happy to say that it is on the rise. In fact, it's already closing the achievement gap at record numbers inside of Louisiana, and we're coming outside of the state. It will be, I'm sure, in the next 10 years, be one of the top 10 school districts in the country. And it'll be because of all the choice and all the options parents practice every single day. Now, you would think with news like that, everybody's happy, right? Their kids are learning, everything is working. Well, even today, we're partnering with the Goldwater Institute in Louisiana. We are being sued, or the state is being sued for a DSEG order. How many of you are familiar with it? Yeah, man, it's a national thing. It's horrible. So, the Department of Justice has pretty much said, black children that are not learning, because it's a lot. I mean, the majority of the kids in the voucher program are black children. You have to go back to the failing schools, because when you left, it made the schools blacker. That's what it said. He literally, I mean, that's what the DSEG order says, that when the schools that they're coming from are, I mean, they're predominantly African-American schools. And they are failing our children. And when a parent makes a decision to pull a kid out and send them to a school where they feel like they're safer and they're going to get a quality education, our Department of Justice have pretty much said, you've got to go back to the school because the numbers aren't right. And so the Goldwater Institute in Bayo is in court today having those conversations. Now, you need to know the department has kind of watered down their claims. They've pretty much come back and said, well, okay, now that we got the numbers, I see what you're talking about, but they're now putting more red tape around the program that's going to really hurt the whole voucher program. So it'll cause parents not to know whether or not their kids will even have a school until late June or July. Parents want to know where their kids are going to go. They don't want to have to wait every year to see if they can go to a school like this. So it's really binding, parents like that. So I'm going to just say a couple of other things that I think are important that I've learned in doing this work. I've been here since, as I said, 2001, and I've learned a lot. I get to go around the country in helping organizations and telling our story, but also helping to change policies. This year, we're really excited that we were able to pass a law in Mississippi. A charter school law in Mississippi. They didn't have one, and so I'm expecting great things out of that. But one of the things that I share all the time, especially when I'm in rooms like this, if we're going to pass quality education reform, it's going to take a lot of working together and a lot of very transparent, very honest conversation. Now, you don't get to do that until you have the kind of relationships that you need. Now, I just took it for granted that we had a relationship. You guys invited me. I'm here. We're on the same side on a lot of the issues. But at the end of the day, when we're working in the community, we have got to get black communities more engaged in the conversation, not tomorrow. And one of the things that I think probably a misnomer that I had when I started this work is I thought that people would just pick up a book and read and say, okay, I'm in. Doesn't work like that. It takes relationships first. You got to spend the time building the relationships in the communities. And from the relationships, you got to go from there to trust. From trust, then you can start talking about policies. You can talk about what works. You got to be able to listen and talk to each other. And trust is just not a one-sided thing that where we trust you and you trust. You've got to trust us too. And one of the things that I think that made Louisiana such a historic state in passing reforms was not only did we have a powerful governor and he used his power in the right way. One of the things Governor Jindal says all the time is that education is my top priority. And he stuck to it. I have to say, he stuck to it. If you go to his website, you see all of our rallies on there. If you go to our website, you see his picture on there. Only place in the country that we do that type, because he understands as we understand. We have this relationship. So if he texts, a member of his committee texts or says something, or we text and say something, we're all there. We're all in it together. But it took time to build those relationships. One of the things I did when I first moved there is I met with the coalition of folks that looked similar to the people in this room, and they had been trying for 20 years to pass a voucher bill, trying for 20 years to get more than 7 charter schools on the books. And I said to them, and they said, Bayo is here. You can help us because you represent the black community. And I said, we don't represent the black community. There are a lot of we are different. Do you know that black people are different just like white people are different? We're not all the same. It's amazing. It is amazing, but we have different thoughts and ideas, and we listen to different music. So when I said that to them, quietness. They didn't laugh like you guys did. But what I said to them is that, first of all, we have to bring more black people to the table. But we can't do it by saying, okay, we're going to pass this law, here it is, sign on to it. They've got to have a vested interest in it. Okay? We got to build those relationships. The second thing is, you guys have been doing this, and I know your heart. And I know that you want better for the learning environments for Louisiana children. I believe that. I had went to lunch with these guys. Man, they bled for this. But you can't be the messenger all the time. You're not going to be able to be in the front of the class. We're going to have to get some color in this room. We got to get some color at the leadership for legislators. But if we do that, and I'm going to tell you, we can't pay people to do it. They have to buy into it, and that takes time. They have to know what's in it for them. Just like I got involved. You know when I got involved? When something happened to me. I had too many other things. You know, I just learned this game, Pacino. You know, I had 2 kids, a house, a dog. I even had a dog. I mean, we had life. I didn't have time to get in to be an activist. But when it happened to me, you got to help people find out what's in it for them. And when they find out what's in it for them, then they're in. And you don't have to pay them. You don't have to beg them. They fill the rooms. You don't have to convict them on the radio and say you should care. But that's hard work, and it takes a little bit longer to do. But if you are passionate about it, if you are committed to it, it can be done. And you know what'll happen? What'll happen is what's happening in Louisiana. You'll walk into a coalition meeting in a room like this, and you'll see more people in it, more diverse people. Not only black and white, I'm talking about different age groups and different, students, because everybody has a vested interest. Only if that's what you want to do. But then we have vouchers, tax rebate, tax deductions, charters, innovation in public schools. And it took all of that. It took those things to happen for us to get there. And I'm going to end on that.